welcome back to my channel and happy 2025. Recently, back in November, I was a vendor at my first ever market, and while I don't plan on doing markets again anytime soon, I did learn a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, and I am very proud that I even completed it and was able to make about $500 at my first market. I want to share with you everything I learned from start to finish, from product ideation, product making, packaging, setup, everything. In case any of you make it a goal in 2025 to vend at your first market. So I hope you enjoy. What I have for products. Well, when I was brainstorming for this market, I looked at everything I liked and I narrowed down chunky knit bags, jewelry, specifically wire wrapped rings and earrings, but did not include clay components, and hand sewn scrunchies. And I chose these products for 3 reasons. The first being the cost out of pocket for me wouldn't be too bad, especially since I knew that for a bunch of these, like the jewelry and these scrunchies, for example, I could use recycled materials like fabric I already had on hand. I already had a bunch of fabric lying around and jewelry components from years ago that I never used, so I knew that I could use everything I had.
So reason number 2. Is this something that's going to be easy to make and relatively quick to make? Jewelry and knit bags are some things I've already made before, and I know that they don't take too much time. However, the scrunchies I knew were going to be a little bit of a challenge I was willing to take, because unfortunately sewing is not my best skill, but it's still something I wanted to try out. So I did make scrunchies, but in a limited quantity.
But most importantly, third criteria, is this something that I like, that I would wear, that if I saw it market myself, I'd be like, oh my god, I have to leave with this. And I don't know if this is good business advice. I know that sometimes you do have to know your audience, which I'll get to later, and you should cater products to audiences. But I never want to make something that I think is ugly or that I wouldn't wear myself, and that I wouldn't have fun making myself. So if I made a bag that I didn't really like because I thought more people would like it, I wanted to be everything I really liked, down to the color scheme, down to everything. So it had to fit those 3 things. So yeah, those were my products.
And I wanted to give you guys a quick look on what it looked like to make some of these products. The scrunchies, I used fabric that I had laying around. I did buy some yards of fabric from Hobby Lobby and craft stores near me, but I don't feel comfortable giving a tutorial on how to make these scrunchies because I had quite a time myself. This was my first time making them, so I would suggest watching the YouTube links that I put in my description and show in this video. They are going to be a better help to you than I am. With the hand knit bags, I have years of crochet experience, so I just used mainly this video tutorial to help me make a pattern for my bags. It's pretty much the same. The only difference is I did 7 rows and began with 6 loops on each side. If you watch a tutorial, that'll make a little bit more sense for you. What I can share with you though is where I got my tubular yarn. The yarn I chose to use was a velvet yarn because I thought it looked best and I loved the colors that they offered. I did get mine on Amazon, however, I love these vendors on Etsy. The only reason I did not order from these vendors on Etsy is because I was doing all of this in a span of 1 month and it wouldn't have shipped to me on time. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about Amazon, but it's what was readily available to me and shipped very quickly to me. So that is what I used for the tubular yarn. The knit bags were the most costly to make just because the material, the tubular yarn, is expensive. And out of one skein of a 2-pound ball, you could only make really 2 bags. I would say 1 full-size bag and 1 smaller shoulder bag. So that's what I did out of each skein of yarn. But the cool thing about these bags is you don't need any tools, you just use your hands and the yarn. And you can make up 1 bag, I am not kidding you, in probably 30 to 40 minutes when you get fast with it. So in reality, this takes the least time to make and I think gives out one of the coolest products I've ever made. As for the wire wrapped rings, here's a quick look at how I did it. I will still link a better tutorial down below. For the beads, I actually repurposed an old necklace I found at the thrift store. I just cut out the beads for them. And they were these little twisted pearls, so I used that as the middle. For the wire, I used gold wire from Hobby Lobby. It is a non-tarnish, I believe 20 gauge wire, soft wire. But I do recommend buying from this vendor on Etsy. This is my favorite vendor I've used over the years. Their jewelry components are the highest quality, I think the most bang for your buck. They definitely do not tarnish, and a lot of them are made of sterling silver, so it won't turn your fingers green. The gold wire I used was copper based, so there is a chance that it could turn your fingers green, but the rings I made I wore over a span of a couple months and they did not tarnish on my hands. However, the silver wire that I used from Hobby Lobby that said non-tarnish absolutely tarnished, and tarnished within probably a month or so. It would turn my fingers green because it did also have a copper core, so that's unfortunate. So what I ended up doing was buying wire from this vendor. It's a local vendor in California, I believe Arcadia, California, and I bought sterling silver wire. It is more expensive when you buy sterling silver, but I think it's worth it if you want jewelry that really lasts. The gold wire wrap jewelry still definitely lasted, but you do chance it when it's a copper core.
All right, next up, product packaging. My favorite part of this whole thing. When looking at small businesses and businesses in general, my favorite part is the marketing and the branding. I like to see what colors companies choose, what logos they go with, what really catches the eye. It's my favorite part. It's the most interesting part. I love a good color concept. I think that choosing a color story for your products is a way to make things look cohesive, even when you have kind of different things. And luckily, I already had a logo. It's my McMakes logo. It's an orange flower just with white font in the middle. It says McMakes. I already had that. I made that on Canva, and you can easily make your own by Googling literally Canva logo templates. It's probably going to be the first link. It'll take you to Canva and a bunch of pre-made designs for logos. My advice is choose a pre-designed one. Sometimes making one from scratch, especially when you're not that great at graphic design or don't even really know the interface of Canva, is a little bit difficult. So choose one that is kind of close to what you were thinking in your head. If you find one that you like completely out of the bat from the website, perfect, use that. But what I liked to do was I chose a bunch that I thought would kind of fit what I was thinking in my head, and then I kind of made it my own. So I went into Canva, I fixed it up a little, I chose a color I liked, and that's how I made my logo. Very easy. You're not gonna have a logo that somebody else will have if you put your own personal touch on it, and you kind of get there quickly with no muss and fuss. You don't have to really design anything. And the great thing about Canva is not spawn, but one day, and I'm manifesting it, if I'm sponsored by Canva, I use Canva for everything, my thumbnails, logos, all the product packaging that I did for this market. I use Canva. So Canva, if you'd like to sponsor me one day, that'd be amazing, but not spawn. Canva Pro is fantastic with exporting. After I made all of my logo, product, packaging designs, you're able to export it easily in the way that you'd want it to get printed. So they do have like RGB settings, CMYK settings. It makes it super easy, super intuitive. And yeah, just love Canva for everything. Back to the color concept and the overall design for my setup and product packaging. When I created my logo, I wanted something punchy, super punchy. My favorite color is orange, so I knew that I wanted orange to be in there. And I do like a graphic look, something graphic and a little bit just minimal, but bold. And so I wanted those things, those characteristics to show in my logo, and I wanted that to be in my design as well. I kind of took that as a design thesis, or kind of a mood board if you want to look at it that way. making sure that every aspect of my product, my product packaging, my setup, the way I market things kind of fits in that design thesis so that everything stays cohesive. So again, punchy, bold, graphic. Those were the 3 characteristics that I wanted to stick to. And to make it easy, I chose just 3 colors I really like, I really enjoy, and that is a green, pink, and orange, which I thought went together really well. It kind of did give, you know, a Lizzie McGuire Y2K vibe, which is, I love that vibe. And so really happy with the colors I chose. And it translated well to being printed out on, you know, like the earring backs, stickers, and even marketing on Instagram later when I made shorts content, which I'll get to later. And again, my budget was small, so I did only want to make things that were completely necessary. I didn't want to make anything crazy. Like, you know, if I had all the money in the world, I would probably design like a custom bag or something, a postcard saying thank you, all these things that, you know, you see small businesses include in their product packaging, but I kept it simple. I just pretty much did my logo, I printed it in a small sticker. I did that on Amazon, very cheap, and the reason I chose Amazon was because the minimum sticker order was very small. I only wanted a small batch printed, and a lot of companies like Vistaprint or Sticker Mule, they have a very high minimum, so I think you'd have to order like 100 stickers minimum. I think on Amazon it was like 40, I don't remember, but it was smaller. It was smaller than 100, and it was cheaper because I only needed to order a little bit. And I made earring cards that I knew my earrings needed to be punched into, and then kind of put into the cellophane bag. And that was a great chance at incorporating the product packaging into the design of my setup as well. You'd be able to see those colors when they're laid out on the table to be a little bit more eye-catching for a consumer. And for my earring cards, the size that I made them is roughly the size of a traditional business card. I think that's like 2.5 by 3 inches. But what I did was, because I wanted to have earring cards that were 3 different colors, I didn't want them all to be the same color, but I also didn't want to order that many business cards because again, the minimum is high. I think the minimum to order business cards, even at like a nearby Staples or CVS or something, is probably like 50 or 100, and that's quite a lot for me. So what I did was I took 3 and I fixed them onto a postcard size. That way I could get a small amount of postcards and just cut them out later. I saved money that way. I didn't have to order too much, so nothing was wasted, and I got to have a variety of color that added to my design on my table. So typically I do use Vistaprint, but in this case I use Staples to print out my postcard because it's the same day print. I could just pick it up. And again, I did do this within a month. So I do recommend Vistaprint. I think their print quality is great, and they have a lot of paper options. Even choosing CMYK, when I exported out of Canva to print at Staples, the color wasn't exactly the same, but I found that with Vistaprint, the color is the closest to what I see on screen. It wasn't too big a deal though. I cut my losses. Before I started making anything, I did use Pinterest and made a mood board. I took a look at other people's marketing displays, what I liked about them and what I wanted to do for my table. And so essentially I took bits and pieces from everything I've seen and then thought about what I could recreate by myself at home. I was on a very tight budget. I didn't want to buy anything new. A lot of the displays I saw and liked were made out of either acrylic or wood, and I was not willing to spend on that. So at first I was thinking about using cardboard, and then I remembered that I had leftover XPS foam from miniatures that I made. You can find XPS foam at any hardware store. I got mine at Home Depot. It's in the insulation section. It's what they use for insulating houses, and they come in giant sheets. And I do have a foam cutter that acts as a scroll saw. I thought that was the best route to go. Everything I already had on hand was at home. I didn't have to buy anything, maybe just a couple more hot glue sticks. and then I got to working. I made very quick mock-ups on paper of roughly what I wanted my market display to look like. I tried to stay within that design thesis of punchy, bold, and graphic, and I really like the shape of my logo, and I wanted to incorporate that graphic shape in my design in the displays in different areas. I did save quite a lot of money using foam, but if you don't have a foam cutter, I don't know that you would get as crisp cuts as I did. And I don't know if a knife would exactly go through XPS foam, but a wire cutter is a small investment as well. I think a handheld one is maybe $20, $25. The one I have is kind of like a scroll saw looking foam cutter, and that was a bit more expensive. I will link the same one that I used down below. If you plan on using that for different things like I did for miniatures, it is one of the best tools you can have. At first, I thought that you could only cut out kind of straight shapes, but I soon found out later with a special tip is if you use a piece of cardstock and you cut out a shape on the cardstock that you want the foam to be cut out in, you can pin it on top of the foam and then put your wire cutter on low and have it touch the paper, almost trace it, as you can see in this video, because cardstock is not going to melt the same way foam is going to melt. So your bottom layer of foam is going to cut crisply if you run your hot wire along that cardstock. And after doing that, you can honestly cut anything. And when you cut out your shapes in the cardstock and put it on the foam, at first I used either hot glue or super glue, but later saw an Instagram reel of a lady taking pins and just punch them in different spots of the cardstock onto the foam, and that turned out to be so much easier. You didn't have to wait for anything to dry. It wouldn't ruin the top layer of your foam at all because the hole is so small, and it was strong enough to just honestly get the shape out and then toss out the cardstock. Also, if you don't want to cut out multiple shapes of the cardstock, you can use the same one for many different cuts. I was able to make my logo kind of in like a 3D sign. After you paint it, honestly, I got asked if I made those displays out of wood. It looks pretty convincing once you paint it, especially if you use just, matte acrylic paint on top, and you get a really nice even coat. It is, from far away especially, is indecipherable from wood. The only thing is, it doesn't weigh as much as wood, so you're gonna need to find something to either weigh down your pieces. You're either gonna make the base big enough so that it doesn't topple over, especially if you have a market outside. Or what I did was I used sticky wax. It's kind of like what they use to hang posters on a wall so that it doesn't ruin your wall. I just put some underneath the displays and stuck them onto my table, and they were fine. My bags, I was gonna just put on a rack, a collapsible rack that I found on Amazon for super cheap. It took apart very easily and it folded up, so my bags were fine. And I had these old bag hangers that I just used, luckily, in my closet. I also needed a place to put my wire rings, and I did buy a simple ring case for that. I thought that the hassle of making one as opposed to buying one, for less than $10, I chose the less than $10 option. I did end up purchasing a couple more things like a tablecloth and a square reader to be able to read card payments, and that turned out to be very helpful. And I did want this to be as universal as possible, so I included options like Venmo, Zelle, Cash, and I also included a QR code for my Etsy shop in case people wanted to check it out later to buy a bag. A tip, if you don't want to spend money on business cards, I just included a QR code for my social media, so my Instagram. Segue on how I made little QR codes. I added a QR code sign that added to the overall design of my table. I wanted that to also have the 8-sided flower shape and the colors on there. It turned out very well. I designed these in Canva as well. Canva actually has a very cool app. Again, this sounds like a Canva sponsorship. I wish it was. One day it will be. And another tip, on the day of the market, if you are going to accept cash as a mode of payment, I would have change, especially when you have items that are, a couple bucks, like the rings I had.
Okay, so if you're serious about starting a business and you're not just doing a market because it's a side quest like it was for me, then I would suggest endless resources online like pricing calculators that will help you out. But what I focused on was really just covering my material cost, how much would be taken out from service fees from the Square Reader, the vendor fees, and taxes. If I was more responsible, I probably would have factored in how long each product took to make, but I did still make sure to make as much profit that I thought was fair and keeping my prices as reasonable as I can for the audience that I had. This market was specifically for people who love vintage shopping and who love handmade goods, so I wasn't afraid to price them what I thought was fair. Again, super vague. Really, the gauge I used was pretty arbitrary, but I will tell you the prices of my products. For my rings, each ring was $6 each, but if you bought two, you could get two for $10. My full-size shoulder bag was $35, and my crossbody bag that was a little smaller was $30. Each scrunchie was priced differently depending on how much the trim I used cost and how long it took me. So they ranged anywhere from $6 to $12, I think was my most expensive one. That's all I got for you on pricing. I did not know what I was doing, probably priced them a little bit too low, but that's what I had. Some general advice. Number 1, starting a small business or doing a market can be daunting price-wise, so get creative and figure out a way to use whatever you have. Use old fabric, use things you have around your house. Use unlikely materials like foam for a display. Vintage shop for supplies. And definitely try to keep it simple. You don't have to do anything crazy, marketing-wise, to have successful products or successful display. Using things you have like fabric, beads, jewelry components, anything you can find, makes your products extremely unique and something that people won't be able to replicate. So just remember, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to be able to start a successful business. Number 2, know your audience, but keep it real. This market was a vintage market with an emphasis on vintage fashion, so I did tailor what I was selling to fit that demographic at this market. It was also an eco park, so the demographic probably included more of younger adults, maybe anywhere from 20 to 35-year-olds who possibly had more disposable income, lived in the city, who were trendy, creative, more open to things that were colorful, to products that were bright, textured, and could be statement pieces. If this market was in a suburban area, I probably would have tried to tailor my products to things that were a little bit more minimal, that could go with everyday outfits for the everyday person. But again, keep it real in that if that's just not what you like, don't make it. If you stay true to what you like, to what you want to see in stores, you'll find your own niche, and you don't have to worry about pandering to a mass audience because you'll have your own community and you'll find success that way. Number 3, try to have products in a varying price range. I don't know that I would have had as much success as I did if I only had products that were $30 and up and things that weren't only a couple dollars. If you widen your price range, you'll have a better chance at widening your audience. Number 4, and the most important, from the brilliance of a Cinderella story, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. So corny, but so true. Not every market is going to be successful, and I realized that I got lucky that mine was. But if it doesn't go well the first time, don't let that stop you from trying again. Good businesses are not built overnight. They take a lot of dedicated work. Even though this was just a side quest for me, it took a lot of work and dedication, and if I was really serious about continuing this, I would tweak as I go, see what works for me, and keep at it, because again, good things take a long time to build. To end this video, I thought I would share my best selling products and worst selling. My chunky knit bags, specifically in the red color and the black color, were the most popular, which was awesome because they were my favorite products. So the big material cost turned out being worth it. And because the material is a thick, good quality velvet yarn, the bags ended up being great quality and was something that was going to be durable for people to use. The second bestseller were my scrunchies. Even though I had a limited quantity, I made sure to only lay out the ones that I would be confident that people would like. And even though there weren't many, I did almost sell out of them. So that was very cool. They took so long because, again, I stink at sewing. I probably wouldn't make them again, but I could see scrunchies being a really good small business idea. You can get really creative with what you make. You can use recycled materials, and when you get good at it, I'm sure each scrunchie wouldn't take you as long as it did me. I did only have a couple products, but my worst selling was definitely my rings. Even though they were only a couple dollars, I think the mistake I made was not labeling the rings with the ring size, so people would have to pick up each ring and kind of try them on when they were shopping for them. And I don't think most people are willing to do that when they're standing at somebody's stand. So that's all I have for you guys. I had so much fun doing this market. Side quest complete. I hope some of this was helpful. If there's something that you're curious about, want to know more about, please comment it down below and I will try to answer all your questions over there. Thank you for watching. I'm so excited for all the videos I plan on releasing this year. I do hope you consider subscribing to see more of those videos. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next one.